Adam, as you mentioned, we are recording this on May the 4th, so International Star Wars Day. Keeping with the whole internet pop culture, I thought it would be relevant for us to have our own little Star Wars section, being the resident Star Wars. I don't know. You weren't a big Star Wars. You're just like lukewarm on Star Wars, right?
I mean, when it comes to games, if we're talking games, like I didn't play a lot of them, mostly because as a kid I didn't really have the purse strings, so there were a lot of games that I missed out on. But like,
Yeah.
I've been like middle of the road kind of Star Wars fan. I've watched every movie except 9 because I got so mad at 8 that I was like, nope, I'm done. I'm sorry, I'm done.
Yeah. So 8 and 9 are interesting movies, and I'm not going to go too far into this, but like I was having this conversation with a friend over the weekend. We were talking about this, and he was adamant that episode 8 was better than episode 9. And I'd say that like they're equally good and they're equally successful and equally failing. And I feel like story-wise, episode 9 is not that great, but it captures the feeling of Star Wars. It captures like the fun and the characters of Star Wars. Episode 8 is a more interesting story done poorly. So that's how I'd put it. Episode 9 is a poor story done better. Episode 8 is a better story done poorly.
It made, like, just to keep it short as well, like it made me so sad to watch 8 and be so angry at it because I felt like it really took a lot of liberties with the license and took a lot of shots and kind of really gave the fans the wrong rub. Like few people that I know that are lifelong Star Wars fans really like that movie, and very few people that I know that like that movie generally weren't big Star Wars fans or started on the new franchise.
Yeah.
Like I watched episode 7 and I loved it because I'm like, that's what I remember. That's the kind of fun that I remember. And then episode 8 came in and I'd be like, oh, this is what happens when a company that doesn't actually care about the license just want to make money off the license. That's the feeling that I got. I felt like once 8 came out, Star Wars became a corporate film. And I kind of lost love with it. And that's why I chose not to watch 9. I know exactly what happens in it because I've read it all over, because I still want to know, but I wasn't willing to drop the money on it. Whereas like, and I mean, to weave it into games, since that's where we were going to go with it, I feel like this list is going to be weird because a lot of it's going to be much older games, because I find that Star Wars today has become similar in that a lot of the games that I feel have come out in the last little while, and granted, it's also because EA is at the helm of a lot of it. It seems like Star Wars has less been about the awe of the license, and so much it's just been a license to print money.
Okay, this is gonna be interesting because my list probably looks a little bit different than yours. So
I guess so.
We've actually got 5. We each came with 5, and what we'll do is we'll give a point system. So the lower they are on the list, so like number 5 is going to be worth 1 point. Number 1 is going to be worth 5 points. We'll compile at the end and see whether they do like a top 5 or top 10, depending how the list works out. Adam, I've got 5 plus an honorable mention.
So what we're cheating already.
No. This one is not getting any points. I just wanted to give a shout out to this because I was talking with my wife and she's like, "What about this game?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like." But I'll tell you right now. So the honorable mention goes to Beat Saber. Not a Star Wars game by any stretch of the imagination,
but it kind of is.
It kind of is. So like, I was trying to think when I was making my list. I was like, okay, the things I'm looking at is, what is the story like? Like, what is the game? Does the gameplay make you feel like you're in Star Wars? And like for me, I was looking at the 3 main aspects I think of Star Wars is like the lightsaber fighting, like you want to feel like a Jedi with a lightsaber. The flying aspect, like being in dogfights and X-wings and TIE fighters, and just that ground scale combat. And so Beat Saber obviously is not a Star Wars game, but it totally feels like a lightsaber game. And when you're swinging those sabers, you're basically playing with a lightsaber. So not gonna get any points, but just want to give a shout out to Beat Saber for that lightsaber experience. Adam, do you want to go first with your number 5?
Sure. I'll boot it up with the SNES Super Star Wars, which was I that was like one of the very few games that I owned on my Super Nintendo as a kid, and I think that also helps a lot with the nostalgia factor on it. It's also just a fun, silly little platformer. It has like the sand speeder kind of stuff, so there's a little bit of like differentiation. I should really go back and replay it and probably play it with cheats so I can finish the game, because I think as a kid I still only got like 3 or 4 levels in, because games back in those days, especially
there was no easy mode.
No, there was no such thing as easy. It was just play this game, and we're gonna make it intentionally hard so that you pay us $80 for this game and don't feel like you got cheated out of it because it's gonna take you like months to finish it.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember playing Super Star Wars, and it's a cool game. I like it, but for me, the story, like I wasn't big on this. Like it took some weird liberties with it, and I was just like, this isn't
I'm
for
going to
me.
say
Like
for the very I should have said this at the beginning too. My list is going to be based on the fact that I haven't played probably more than 10 games in general in the license. I've missed a lot of stuff.
totally fine. The list is whatever you want. There was really no parameters. I just
Okay, well, I'm going to start with Galaxy at War, the mobile game, and then Star Wars Connect, and then both EA Battlefront games.
All right. Yeah, no, I agree. Like Super Star Wars is good, but yeah. For me, my number 5 was Star Wars Pod Racer. So for me, I remember playing this game as a kid. I thought it was awesome. It made me care about the Phantom Menace and pod racing, which was like one of the worst parts of that movie. Like, not one of the worst parts, but it was just kind of like
pod racing was the only good part about the movie. What are you talking about?
It wasn't that good. Like, so for me, like pod racing, I don't care about pod racing in the scheme of things, but that game is so much fun and like one that I still want to go back and play. So story wise, I don't really care. Doesn't make me feel like I'm in Star Wars. Like I'm not swinging Jedi lightsabers. I'm not fighting in dogfights, but like it made pod racing fun and cool. And like there was a blip in time where everyone was playing that game and that game was awesome. Like I remember that game being at like a McDonald's. Like you could go and play on their little kiosk and they had Star Wars pod racing. It was such a good game. So I'm going to give that one my number 5.
It's funny you say that because that's my number 4.
Oh, fantastic. So go ahead. Why number 4 for you?
Because I have never been so mad at a racing game and been so happy at the same time because that game was hard as balls to control.
Yeah.
Mind you, I think that might be more of an N64 problem because that controller is ass and will always be ass.
Yeah.
But man, like I remember like it was like a volcano-ish level, and that level was just so many pillars, so many death traps, and it's just like I can't. It's like I play F-Zero like even on the Super Nintendo or the Game Boy Color, or the Game Boy Advance or the GameCube, and those games are ridiculously hard because the thing moves so damn fast you can't keep up with it.
Yeah.
Pod racing was the same thing. Like it was so like when you play like just the base maps, it's a lot of fun. And then on top of that, once you get later in the game, you get to the really hard tracks, you just die endlessly, and you're like, I want to be good at this.
Yeah.
I was better at the arcade game, which I figure would have been more challenging.
Yeah, with like the 2 like controllers that you're just.
Yep.
Yeah. I just remember constantly playing that with my sister and my friends and just destroying my sister. Kept pushing her into walls so she would crash and blow up. It was great fun. My number 4 is Star Wars Rogue Squadron. So this is the one that actually just came out last year. I don't know. Have you played this one, Adam?
Oh, you mean Star Wars Squadron?
Sorry, Star Wars Squadron. Thank you.
I have not played that one, by the way.
Yeah, this one is fantastic. So the campaign is whatever. I don't really care. But once again, capturing that feeling of Star Wars. So for me, like you're sitting in that cockpit and you're flying it, like the fact that each cockpit looks different and each fighter flies different. Like I played this on VR and it was just so unreal playing this. And I like got like my wife to play it. I got my dad to play it. I was like, you guys got to try this. And like, they're not playing it like in terms of doing the combat, but they're just flying around and they're like, holy crap, this does feel like I am in a TIE fighter. It does feel like I'm in an X-Wing. And the fact that the cockpits look different and I would be like flying around, looking around where enemies are, like it felt like a dogfight. And so the story wasn't amazing. I don't even remember what happened. I can't even tell you how it finished because like I don't remember the ending. But like I remember level to level just loving that game. And so I think that one is an awesome one on the list.
Mm-hmm. Number 3 for me would be the good Battlefront 2 on the old school Xbox and PS2, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Not the EA ones. No, they actually I don't mind the campaign in the EA one, but the game itself can suck every bag of male genitalias as it can. because
So
it was pretty bad.
Quick thing on because you said the EA Battlefront 2 campaign was, I thought it was okay. Like it was
fine.
It had a lot more potential than it actually, like, it looked like it was gonna be this cool, like, oh, we're gonna play as the Empire and see how this goes. It was such a cool premise, and it's like, nah, you flip, and now you're just doing like all these tutorial missions, and it's like, okay, well, this kind of like you wasted so much potential with this, and I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue about the EA one.
I'm not the EA one. Jeez.
That's what I said, isn't it?
Oh, sounds to me like you said the EA one.
No, I totally said the wrong one, and I'm just trying to cover my tracks.
Ah, so it's trying to screw with me too. All right, well, the old one, the good one, had it right. You know, I got to play both just the regular console version playing the single player, and I got to play it on PC where it was, and apparently you still can play it on PC because people reopened servers on it. And it was exactly what you would hope a crazy dogfight of Star Wars of like chaos would look like. And granted, a lot of this is now coming from, like, most of these games are coming just based from memory because I have none of these games on my list are stuff that I've played in the last like 5 years.
No one played this recently.
A lot of it just comes down to like, it really was like the closest thing I think we got to, you know, Star Wars being exactly what it could have been in a full scale war setting. I mean, granted, some game, like if we could get something like that now and without EA bullshit, I think you have an amazing game. If they can take the squadrons part of it and then put it with some really solid third-person shooter stuff, like if they could throw like, maybe not the Mass Effect stuff, but something somewhere around, like, actually Outriders has a pretty decent third-person, minus the cover system, but we'll get into that in the review later. It's like you get a really solid third-person shooter in there, and you mix it with squadrons for the aerial combat. You could have a really solid game that could rival what Star Wars Battlefront 2 did, because that's what like the original one definitely started getting people's like gears going in their heads, and then 2 just basically said, "Oh yeah, this is exactly what we want," and then it stopped happening forever for some reason, because apparently fans don't get what they want anymore.
Yeah, agreed. I'll give that one 3 points. For me, number 3, and I'm thinking I know where this falls on yours, but for me, number 3 is KOTOR. I went with KOTOR because I think it's a fantastic game. One of the aspects, like I said, for this list that I'm focusing on is the story, and KOTOR has a fantastic story. Like, it's so good, like, to play, like, either be a Sith or a Jedi. Like, it's super cool. You can play sort of any sort of role you want. Like, I thought it was great. I love the story. The reason why it's at number 3 is just because it, as much as it is a Star Wars game from a story perspective, the gameplay is not anything special in the sense, like, it doesn't make you feel like a wicked Jedi Knight or anything like that. Like, it's very much an RPG with that click kind of sequence turn order. So the gameplay aspect, I think, is the least compelling part of it. And based on our conversations from last week, like, it's not something that I necessarily want to revisit, but I think the story puts it at such a high caliber.
Yeah. Number 2 is actually Rogue Squadron, like Rogue Squadron, unlike somebody's misfire there, the N64 version. Just because, like, the first time I ever sat down and played that game, I could not believe what I was actually looking at. Like, I'm looking at me flying in an X-Wing and being like, holy crap, I'm actually flying an X-Wing and doing stuff. Or like when you play the Hoth level and you're in the Snow Speeder, I believe it is. I can't remember what the actual, like,
It's Snow Speeder.
Yeah, so, and you're friggin' tying the coil around the AT-ATs, like, that stuff was so cool, and they got all that stuff right. And I think it, like, obviously, I think if people look at other games like Rogue Squadron 2 that was on the GameCube, or obviously Squadrons now, I mean, there's obviously improved versions of it, but I think because of Rogue Squadron laying down the foundation, and I'm not gonna lie, it's got a lot of nostalgia built into it for me, that I think I put it a lot higher in that regard just because of what it did.
For me, I've heard amazing things about, like, the Rogue Squadron games. The reason why it's not on my list is just I stayed with games that I had played, and that's one that just never crossed my controller, if you would go that way.
It didn't cross your 6-axis?
Yeah, exactly. No, I just never got that one, so no. For me, my number 2 is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. if I recall, this is a game that you do not like, Adam.
I was quite disappointed.
So for me, I love the game. I think the story is fantastic. It is an original story, and this is where I think Star Wars games need to either excel, like either capture the story and stay to it like as true as possible. But I think it's best when they make their own stories, and that's why something like Super Star Wars didn't really appeal to me. So to have like an original story that kind of fits in with the whole saga, awesome. I thought that the worlds that they built were kind of cool. Like I said, the story just captivated me. I like the lightsaber and like force powers. And one of the ones that, and it's not on my list, but one of the ones that was kind of there for me was I was battling between Fallen Order or Force Unleashed. And for me, I felt that Fallen Order was, in my opinion, the better game because I felt like a Jedi. Like I wasn't fully trained. Like I wasn't a Jedi Knight. Like I was sort of like an apprentice / Jedi kind of there. And so I had skills, like I could do some basic force stuff. So I felt like a powerful Jedi, but I didn't feel overpowered, which is the problem I think that was with Force Unleashed, is that you're like basically as powerful as Darth Vader. And I thought that was just kind of, it's cool and it was fun. But yeah, for me, Fallen Order is like a good combination of feeling like a Jedi with a good story. Granted, I wish that you were able to like slash people with the lightsaber and like cut them as opposed to just like beat them with a bat, but
it really came off like Power Rangers in that game, didn't it?
Well, it's funny because like when it was the stormtroopers and like the Empire, like yeah, you were beating them with a stick, but when you were fighting monsters, like you were slicing those guys in half, and so it's kind of a weird choice that like okay, killing monsters, yeah, let's decapitate those.
It's almost like the rating systems can be weirdly inconsistent depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, but for me, I love Fallen Order. I ended up platinuming it. It's one of those games that I like to go back to every once in a while. The level design was okay. Like that was probably a big issue with it, but for the most part, I thought it was like a really good Star Wars game.
Yeah, and like I said, like I didn't mind the game itself, but the problem is with a game like that, I'm expecting the story to carry its weight. And when I didn't like a single person in that first little bit that I played, and also just like felt no connection to any of the story, that just made it really hard. Like the gameplay can be really amazing, but if the story isn't pulling anything out of you, it's really hard to kind of stick with something.
See, I loved Grease. I thought Grease was awesome. Cal was, great. BD was really cool. So like I thought there were some cool characters there.
Yeah, it's different spokes for different folks, they say,
Exactly. Is that what they say? Different spokes?
Yes.
Is that? I thought it was different strokes for different folks.
I don't know. Could be both. Why not?
Different strokes for different folks, I guess.
My number one then is Knights of the Old Republic. And yeah, that means that there's a lot of games that I haven't played, like Jedi Outcast I never got around to playing. What was it? Republic Commando I never got around to. There's a lot of cool games that I've missed out on.
Play.
Like there's definitely a lot out there that I've missed just on the basis of like, I never got around to as a kid. I had never had a gaming PC at any point until like literally a couple of years ago. So I was a little bit behind on the PC times too. But yeah, Knights of the Old Republic was kind of like, if it wasn't for that game, I don't think I'm interested in what BioWare had to sell, and that's obviously what brings in things like Mass Effect and Dragon Age and Jade Empire and other things like that. Knights of the Old Republic made me aware of these guys, and it's obvious. Like I'll sit here and say it now, and we talked about it last week. I wouldn't play that game again now. It's aged so poorly, but at the time, which is what we're really going off of here, it was an incredible game. Like it was really, in my opinion, the best story that was ever told in a Star Wars game ever at that point, and in a landslide too. You had some incredible characters you should really get behind, including a droid that, quite frankly, I think is far more interesting than any droid that any of the films have ever had in HK-47, because he literally just badmouths you constantly. He's like Deadpool the robot.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Just calling you meatbag all the time? Yeah.
And
HK-47 was the best.
And you had other, I'm trying to think, what was the Twi'lek's name? Mission Vow, I think.
Here, I'll take a look this time. You keep going on your little.
But like, there's a lot of characters in there, and obviously, like, I'm totally about to spoil a really old game. I think we even spoiled it last week. When you find out that you're actually the Sith Lord you've been hunting this entire time, like, that's a moment that I'll never forget, because that shocked me, and I'm rarely shocked to like an extent like that. Like, I've played so many games now that I've pretty much sat there being like, I'm expecting the backstab, or I'm expecting to turn around being like, actually, it was this person all along.
Yeah.
Whereas like back then, my skills weren't as sharp, and it threw me the hell off when they said, actually, you're the evil one. And you're like, what? I killed all those people? Oh, wait, I probably killed a lot of people during this game. Well, never mind. I guess I'm a murderer in every word of the sense anyway.
Yeah, so just to confirm, it is Mission Vow.
Sweet, my memory isn't completely broken. But yeah, that game has the ultimate nostalgia value for me. The sad part is, honestly, I think I still wouldn't rate it nearly as highly as I'd like to, which kind of tells you that for me, Star Wars games have never really been like the overwhelming, like amazing games for me. But licensed games also have that weird section where like sometimes they just don't give you like the quality experience. Like not every game is going to be what Marvel Spider-Man has been for a licensed game. So, but either way, Knights of the Old Republic, really good game. I wish I got more into the second one, but I had trouble with that one. And then the MMO was what it was. The MMO was a fun little like kind of grind fest, but I didn't get too crazy into that one either.
Yeah, it's funny because I tried playing the second one too, and I had problems getting into it as well. So
it has probably one of the worst endings in any Star Wars game and maybe any game in general. It's horrible.
For me, I'm gonna go with the good Star Wars Battlefront 2, so not the EA one as well. That's my number one. And for me, like I said, it checked all the boxes. Like, you want awesome X-Wing dogfighting? It has it. You want good ground assault kind of experience? It has it. You want to feel like a Jedi? Like, it has it. And so I think it has all the gameplay. It makes you feel like you're in Star Wars. And then that Galaxy Conquest kind of chess game that they had was just...
I totally forgot about that too.
That was the best part. So like, even though it wasn't like a narrative in that sense, like it did have a story in that you're either working to conquer subdue the galaxy or free it. And I thought that was really, really cool. And if I remember correctly, like that one had both like the prequel era as well as like the current era, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so like it covers all the bases. Like I think, and I'm just going to refer to it as the good Battlefront 2. And this is not to say the second one isn't terrible, but it pales in comparison to its original one. And so I think that is the ultimate Star Wars game. So with that being said, so I just quickly did some calculations, doing some math. And to be honest, they all made it on the list. We had 2 ties. So between the two of us, you can pick whoever is your favorite. And that'll affect your rankings. So number 1 is either KOTOR or Battlefront 2, the good one. Number 2 unanimously was Rogue Squadron, the 64 version. For third place, we had Pod Racing, Star Wars Pod Racer. Made it on the list.
I like that.
Then number 4 is either Fallen Order or Squadrons. And then number 5 is Super Star Wars.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, like I said, there's so many games that we missed out on. Like, if we're being completely honest, like there are way too many to speak of. That's like, man, like there's probably people like listening to this being like, how did you guys forget this one? It's like, it's easy actually.
Yeah. Because like there's a whole bunch. Like I'm wanting to I want to play Republic Commando because I remember that as a kid and I was like wanting it all the time, and I just, being a poor kid, I never had the money for it, and then never got it for a Christmas or a birthday, and just kind of just disappeared, and then now it's back.
And it's crazy that no one's really tried to take a second crack at it, because a first-person Star Wars shooter sounds pretty awesome.
I think EA did try a crack at it, and it didn't go well with Battlefront.
Did they actually do first-person with it?
Yeah, those games are first-person.
Oh, right, because they went the Battlefield thing. That's how you know that I didn't play those games.
Yeah.